Hi, Erik Linask here, coming to you from the TMC newsroom. We're here at Interop in Las Vegas, and joining me this morning is John Monson from Mellanox Technologies. John, good morning. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Erik. Good to be here.
So let's get right into it. I know one of the things that you're really excited about is an announcement regarding Best of Interop Award.
Yeah, so we made an announcement on Monday with our newest switch. It uses and actually you can see it here, we build our own silicon for our chip. So in this we utilize our Switch X, which we announced about 3 weeks ago. The product is essentially 36 ports of 40 gigabit Ethernet in a 1U box. Nobody has that. Today it's 1.3 watts per port, which is probably a factor of 5 lower than anything else that you would see on the street. The latency is in the 230 nanoseconds range. So when you start looking at applications that require low latency and high performance, this is a perfect solution.
So how have you been able to achieve some of those efficiencies? The low power usage, obviously, and the volume of the ports.
So basically, it ties into our Switch X silicon that we announced. So the Switch X silicon can deliver all of this, all the services that we have, all of the technology is built into a single IC. So if you look at how clean the design is, you don't have a lot of PHYs sitting along the edges or things like that. It's very low power. We design all our own technology with the Switch X, and we use that to leverage this into a very, very high density, high port count switch. One other thing that's unique about it is that you can also leverage cabling strategies to make it into a very high port count 10 gigabit Ethernet switch. So you can do different port configurations. For example, if you want to do 64 ports of 10 gigabit Ethernet, you can run that with cabling solution out of here with breakout cables that break out a QSFP to 4 SFP pluses. You can also do combinations of that. So suppose I had it on top of rack and I had 48 servers down below. I could run 48 down to 38 servers with 10 gigabit Ethernet, and then I could use 12 ports of 40 gig and run those up to the core. So it's a very flexible design that allows you to run 10 gigabit Ethernet, 40 gigabit Ethernet. I can use it also as an upgrade strategy. So for example, I want to start out at 10 gig and migrate over time to 40. The box can support all of those different speeds and feeds.
Now, what about eventually migrating even upwards up to 100 gig? Is that in the future plans?
So Mellanox tends to lead on the speeds and feeds. We were the first one to deliver 40 gig and 40 gig also on adapter. So we're showing on the adapters, we also have an adapter solution at 40 gigabit Ethernet for the NIC. So at our booth, we're showing an end-to-end solution that runs from server to server at 40 gigabits per second using this technology in a combination with our 40 gig. And we have roadmaps that tie us into 100 gig as well. And our whole strategy is about making very high speed affordable for clustering or database, Web 2.0 type applications where you have very large scaled out networks. The combination is, can I deliver performance, but can I make it economical enough to roll it out in a scaled out fashion? And so just like we did with some of the technology we're doing today, we'll do the same thing as we move forward to 100 gig as well.
How much has the increased adoption and increased interest in cloud technologies driven what you've done?
Well, so as soon as you start talking about cloud, you start talking about infrastructures that are compressing and becoming very large. You want to be able to migrate. You need to have a flexible infrastructure to do that, which means that a lot of the fabrics that are going in now are scaled out. You need to re-provision. You need them virtualized across many. And when you look at that, you start looking at technologies that are, one, able to scale, two, deliver very high performance and flexible use, right? And the third is, once you have a bandwidth, for example, if I'm delivering a virtualization and I have to migrate VMs, et cetera, across the network, it's the time will be dictated by one, latency, and two, the bandwidth that ties to it. And so very high bandwidth, scaled out technologies are great for these kind of cloud and virtualization applications, scaled out internet and Web 2.0. They're perfect fits for this kind of technology.
Now, one thing you mentioned is the significantly reduced power consumption. How important is that when you're introducing new high availability, high speed products?
So power is critical attribute. I mean, now we have a lot of customers in the performance side, and they ask about performance often. But the other side we're seeing more often is sometimes they'll also have a power footprint that says, you know, how much can I get within this power budget? And so once you start building out scaled out networks, the power becomes a critical element. And at the same time that we use our technology to deliver performance, it also delivers best-in-class power. So if you look at this on a power per port, this is running the power of a 10 gigabit Ethernet box at roughly 86 watts here, or 1.3 watts per port. In a 1U is exactly what you would run in a 10 gig box. So we're delivering that performance with a density and with a power level that's roughly half of anything else that you would find. And that's critical when you start scaling them out, because they multiply. Think about 50 racks of these tied up, and a difference of 50 to 100 watts per rack. It's a huge delta.
And at the end of the day, what it results in is a much lower cost.
Absolutely. The other, when you look at, there's two ways to look at the bandwidth piece of it. One is performance. Mm-hmm. The other is if I can deliver efficiency to the CPUs through bandwidth, latency, lossless fabrics, what happens is the server itself becomes more efficient in the application. And what we found is by using that kind of structure and leveraging that bandwidth, the actual number of servers you need to do the equivalent work drops in half. So now, you know, if you look at scaling something out and you say you give an end user a value proposition of I can increase your performance by 2x and drop your infrastructure cost by a factor of 2, it directly relates to the ROI, and that's really the end message that the end users care about.
You have the new switches in deployment already.
So we've sampled these to early customers. They'll roll out this product will roll out more generally available in the June timeframe. Then we have follow-ons in August that also you can continue to add feature sets to them, so they're firmware upgradable. So we have different versions that you'll see. If you think about the technology that we built underneath, it has a huge amount of capability. And so that capability will be rolled out in versions and firmware and upgrades that will provide a whole series of products that are built off of this same silicon foundation.
Excellent. We've been talking here at Interop in Las Vegas in the TMC newsroom with John Monson from Mellanox. John, thanks so much for joining me, and congratulations on the Best of Interop Award.
Thank you. Thanks.